Welcome to the Decentralized Opportunity podcast. This is our weekly podcast where we discuss innovative ideas in business and technology from often overlooked and unconventional sources. I'm your host, Tanner Lytle. I'm here with your other host,
Wyatt Carson. Hello.
One of these days I'm going to get an intro down and it's going to be wonderful. Today's not that day.
No. It's all right.
All right. So how's things going?
They're going well. Very productive at work. As we were talking when we were setting this up, it's really cold in Omaha. It was like 18 degrees the other day, and apparently it's pretty similar in McCook.
Yeah, I had to take the dog to the groomer, and that was the only time I went outside, and it was miserable. Because it's not just a simple thing of taking the dog to the groomer. I have to change vehicles because he's just hair everywhere. And so we take an old vehicle, so it's not a big deal when it gets dirty, and have to just, I don't know, it's a big daisy chain of getting vehicles to go so he can get his haircut.
Spoiled. I feel like a lot of people don't understand Nebraska very well, and in particular how extreme the temperatures can get. Like, McCook is notorious for being the hot spot of the United States, sometimes worse than Death Valley in the summer, like 115, 120. It gets insane there. And then in the winter, negative 30 is not unheard of. It super swings.
Last year, it was so cold that my windows cracked. I was laying in the morning just on my phone right before work, and I just heard this big popping noise, and we have this big front window, and it just completely just cracked right in half. I mean, it was a double pane, so it didn't actually shatter or anything like that, but it was ridiculous.
Totally normal. Yeah, absolutely crazy.
All right.
Anyways, what's on your mind, Tanner?
Well, we did our kickoff of Founders University Week 1. Last Monday, we did our first week's live session, and I thought we could discuss different stuff that we've been learning.
Love it. It was super cool, wasn't it? It was being in there with 300 other people. Like, it started at 1,200 people applied. 300 people got accepted into this program, this 12-week learn how to be a founder, learn how to build a product. This is an amazing program. Once again, if you're not familiar with Mr. Calacanis, Google him. The dude he's a giant in the tech sphere, in the investing sphere. He's one of the consultants right now for Elon Musk, trying to get Twitter up and running and functional. And I know there's lots of jokes out there on the internet, neither here nor there. Elon Musk goes to this guy to say, how do I fix this? And that guy is teaching us how to be successful as a founder. It's really cool.
Yeah, I've listened to his podcast and a lot of this different stuff over the years. He told a story. He actually owns the first Tesla Model S, like serial number one. He, back because he's been friends, I guess, with Elon for a long time. And right when they announced it, he's like, oh, I'll take one. And apparently he was the first one who told Elon he would take one, and he got number one. So just, pretty crazy. You know, the stories that he was telling just seems to know so many people, within the thing. Like, there was stories with DoorDash that we can talk about, and Uber, and all these different things. And it's really neat to hear stories from, like, these giant companies that everyone knows now, but back when they were nobodies, back when they were trying to get their feet on the ground, and it's really inspirational.
I think specifically, let's just hit on the DoorDash story now, because it was to me one of the most impactful stories that I heard during that training, because it almost was like, hey, there's hope. There's hope for the common person. So, Tanner, retell the story of DoorDash, because, man, it was just so good.
Yeah, so the founders, they just had a proof of concept, right? Didn't have a product, didn't have an app. So they just set up a landing page for, like, Palo Alto restaurants or Palo Alto Eats or something along those lines. And they put 10 popular restaurants' menus on there, and you could call, order, and then the founders would call that restaurant, place the order, go pick up the order, take it to the person who ordered it, and collect $10 extra or something like that to do it, just to prove that people would pay for this service. So you had, for, I think he said, a couple months they did that. They had no technology behind it. It was literally just a phone and a website, and them just putting in the grit and the effort to show that this could work. And that's, I don't know, yeah, that's just, for so many times you think, oh, they must have had all this funding to go. They had all this, leg up. We talked last week about how you always idolize people, feel like you're good enough to do those things. Well, this just shows I could do that. I could just literally answer a phone and drive food around. So it's neat.
I could take my debit card and go pick up McDonald's for my neighbor and charge him $10.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah. And that turned into a massive multi-billion-dollar business. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So what else did you get from that week? Like, no story-wise or any nuggets of information?
I think the biggest impact for me was just his reach. And not only that, at the end there was kind of a short Q&A session because it was the first meeting with all of us. There were some people live in California. The vast majority were online. And at the end there was kind of a short Q&A session where people could ask some short questions. And never once did he stop to consider the question. He just knew the answer. The dude was so smart. It was insane. People are like, hey, how much do you think I could get for an initial round of investment based off of this? And he'd be like, okay, what's your TAM? Current customer, how much revenue are you bringing in per month? And they'd say, shout off some number. I'm making $18,000 a month, which is cool. Whatever. Congrats. And he would say, he'd do the math right there on the spot. And he'd be like, yeah, your business is valued at $1.5 million. Congratulations. And I'm sitting back, where did you get this? This man is, it's really cool to have someone to learn from like this. He's next level.
Yeah, and I saw one of our contacts, Charlie, who helped, get us set up and everything in there. He works for Jason Calacanis, who's the person we were talking about. And it was only supposed to be, an hour and a half or something like that. And it went on for 2.5 hours. He was just riffing, answering questions, going deep, having fun. I saw Charlie just post in the Zoom chat. He's like, Jason's loving this. It's great. Because, that's your element, right? That's your passion. And it's his passion because just how much information he knows from it. Plus, he's investing his super valuable time with people like us. And it's such a neat opportunity. Well, for him to, reach a bunch of people and have the opportunity to perhaps meet somebody at the very earliest stage, just that idea stage that could be that next Lyft, that next Uber, that next unicorn that could change the way we do business.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that's important is he doesn't mince words. He doesn't carry anyone or pat them on the back and say it'll be all right, you can make it. He's very blunt about, your idea sucks. I'm sorry. Go back to the drawing board. And he's not mean about it. He's just honest about it. He's not blowing smoke and giving people any false hope because he lives this world every single day. He's done it for years. And he can very quickly say, that's not going to cut it. Not interested. Because at the end of this, and in full disclosure, at the end of this 12-week journey, this class, the goal is that the students will create an MVP, a minimum viable product, and they'll present. They have 2 minutes to present their idea to him and the people who work for him in the hopes that he will do an immediate early investment. And I think the immediate investment, if he likes your idea, if he believes that there's hope, if he believes that you're a good founder, which I'll discuss here in a minute, he'll give you the first investment of $25,000. That's not a seed round. That's not going to angel investors. That's him saying, there's potential here. I would like to be the first early developer or early investor in your business. Here's $25,000 because your plan's good, your product's good, your founders are good, and you have a future. And I think we came out with a total number of 7% of people, maybe less than that, less than 7% will actually get that, which is him being honest and being a businessman, saying most of these ideas are not ready or they're not good. And it's nothing against you, just you need to go back to the drawing board if this is what you want.
Yeah, he also talked about he might not be the right person for the business. One of the big things that I wasn't expecting was just the very specific niches that he talked about that he invests in and the certain requirements that you have to do for them to do investments. And that was eye-opening for me. Just straight up, we were like, if we want to do an app and get investor money, we probably need to set up a Delaware C Corp. We need to do this. We need to be ready because it is somewhat of a machine, because they do so many investments. The odds of anything producing are so small that it is a little bit of a churn system to make sure that everyone can get through and get their opportunity. So that was something that I didn't go into knowing.
Yeah, that was eye-opening is a great word because, and once again, this isn't a gift. He's not giving you $25,000. He's investing in you, which means a portion of your business. He becomes an investor, and you are indebted, if you accept this money, to continue building your product, to continue to build value for him and his team. That's the point of an investment. This isn't a gift because, hey, you're really smart. Here's $25K. That doesn't make sense. He's investing in you to build the product and take it to the next level, which is awesome.
And then the next level too, they have, so this is the founders, you, just the idea stage. And then they have an accelerator. So when you actually have a product, you have some customers and you're ready to take that, accelerate it to the next level, then you can go through one of theirs, or there's other ones like Y Combinator. And then those are the next level for your business, your product, to really see if it could be something. And a lot of people, or a few people, they didn't accept the money, but they did accept the accelerator. And then some accepted the money and the accelerator. So it really depends on what, one, you're willing to give up in equity, what you're ready for. Because every round that you do, and he talked about that, you have to give up a piece of yourself. So you might start a company with 100%, but by the time you IPO, if you ever go public, let's say you're one of those rare cases that do, you own 10% of the company. So
that's absolutely it. Is people don't consider that when they go searching for funding rounds. You know, A, B, C, all of these rounds you can get funding up to the tens of millions of dollars from investors. It's not free money. You are expected to turn that around, invest it into the business, and they get a dividend off of that. It's not free money, and I think we all knew that intrinsically, but he spells it out. This is not a gift. You are to put this money into the business. You are to take it to the next level, and then once you're there, take it to the next level and the next level, because he wants his return too. I mean, he's not where he's at today by giving out free gifts to people who he thinks is really smart. So
yeah, and one thing I didn't consider beforehand too is you don't want to give up too much equity too early. So let's say you do talk to someone who's an angel investor and they want to give you some money to start your business, but they take too much. Well, then that's going to be limiting when you're going for your next round or your next round after that, because there's not enough to give for those next rounds. And he talked about examples where they had to go buy back shares from early investors so they could then go get the next level investment to have enough to give. And that was really eye-opening too, because the trap of starting a business in some sense is you want, if people offer you free money, you're just like, yeah, I want to get this going. I'm excited. I want to make this a reality. And you really need to take a step back and really think about who you're going to be work with, because it is a long-term relationship. It is almost somewhat like a business marriage in some ways, where you're going to be with this person and they're going to have a say in your life and have control of your destiny in many different ways. And so you want to make sure you're bringing the right people on board. So that was something that was big for me to think about. If we create a product, when is it right to start accepting money? Are you ready for those things? Because you often see so many times in the news, like so-and-so just raised $100 million for this. And so it just seems like free. But in reality, what are you giving up? What are you indebting yourself to? How are you potentially limiting yourself by taking that money?
Right. If someone at the very beginning stages says, I'll give you $50,000 for 50% stake in your company, and you really need that $50,000 to invest in whatever technology, gain new customers, put it out in the market, safe a couple years down the road, you reach that unicorn status and you're valued in the millions and millions of dollars. That person who only invested $50,000 now owns 50% of your multi-million-dollar company. It absolutely is something you have to consider, and it's not something you should take lightly. Absolutely.
The other thing was like each round is almost like a ladder, and he talked about the different stages of what your company would be worth, where you're at in those stages. So even taking that $50,000 early might limit you from ever reaching that next rung. And that's the other thing to consider too. You should have been leaner, meaner, doing it more yourself rather than outsourcing those things or bringing on too many people, and just bootstrap it. And then that could have accelerated you much faster in the future rather than getting this big jump start and then just kind of fizzling out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is a great segue into probably one of the big learning points. So you have this meeting and you learn a lot of cool concepts, and then you break, but you are not done in Founders University. You have a lot of homework, a lot of stuff to learn. And part of what he talked about, and a huge piece of the homework afterwards, was the definition of a great founder, spotting a great founder, being that kind of person investors are interested in giving you money. Even if you have a wonderful idea, if you yourself or your partners and founders are not the kind of people they believe will take this all the way and really put the dedication in, they won't invest in you. Even if it's the greatest idea ever, if the person who's presenting it, the person who owns that business, is not willing to take it all the way and take it very seriously, they're not going to invest in you. The best idea in the world means nothing if it dies because you get bored or you get stressed or you freak out and you drop it. That's not valuable to anyone. So I took some notes about his definition of spotting a great founder, and it all boils down to resiliency and desire, but it goes deeper than that. He gave 3 questions that he kind of uses to judge what would be a great founder, who has the potential to take this to the next level, who really wants it. And these 3 questions, it wasn't a slap in the face. That's not the word I'm looking for. It was kind of like someone splashed me with cold water. And I started thinking, oh, wow, you really have to consider, if you want to go the route of investing, if you want to receive investments, angel investing, seed rounds, all of that stuff, this has to be a passion for you, and beyond passion, that you have to live and breathe this. But 3 questions he said of a great founder: am I willing to sell everything I have to get 1 more month of payroll for my team and keep this company going? Okay. People depend on you. Their livelihoods depend on you. You need to make this work for them. Is that important to you? That was I had to stop and think, wow, you're absolutely right. The next one, am I willing to max out my credit cards and go $20,000 in debt to keep this company going for 1 more month or so? Okay, yeah, I can see that. You have to invest yourself. You have to put yourself on the line for this company, for your employees, if you get to that point where you have employees. And then another one, same thing in the line of employees, because when people are involved, things get serious. You know, if it's just you trying to start a company, if you fail, you might have a little debt. You might have some issues you have to deal with, but when you bring other people in as employees, you are responsible for them. You promised them a salary, a living, to do work for you, to make your vision come true. So this last one was really cool. Am I willing to ask everyone on my team to work for deferred salary while I try and save this company? Wow. Imagine having to be in that position. It's scary. It's terrifying. Your employees might have children, and because of how the business is doing in their market, or maybe a mistake you made, you're impacting their lives, and you are responsible in some degree for all of that. And it's a scary concept. And it was meant to scare people, I think, because everyone has a business idea. And that's kind of what this entire podcast is about. It's everything we talk about, Tanner. Everyone in the world has a business idea. There's only a small amount of people who are willing to take it to that extra step and make it a reality, because it's scary. You put your family on the line, you put other people's family on the line, and man, there's a lot of consequences if it fails.
Yeah, my takeaway from it is really a great founder, a great business person, one comes up with and starts executing on an idea that is worth believing in. It starts with them, and they're willing to put their own money, their own time, their own effort into that. But it really does come down to how much buy-in can you get from others. You know, how much if your business idea is good or your product is good, people should want to join you. He actually in the class talked about it's a red flag for investors if you can't find co-founders. You know, if the product or the idea isn't worth people wanting to jump on board for, to see, because they see the potential for growth themselves, why would an investor want to? But ultimately, why would your customers want to? If there's not enough idea of like, if I not only would I want to buy this and use this myself and pay my own money for, I would be willing to drop everything I'm doing now to make this a reality. If you have an idea that you can do that and start delivering on, I think that is the crux of this, what starts a great founder. And then you have, like you said, you're willing to deliver on that. You believe in what you're doing, whether that be just the idea that you put in, you get past that dip and the reward's going to be there, or for whatever reason your mission has some other objective that you're going to do good by executing on those things. Most of the time it's just you believe the reward is around the corner, and that's fantastic, and that's probably the way to do it, because we're all reward-driven people. But you said, would you be willing to invest your money? What was number 2?
Oh, are you willing to max out your credit cards and go
Yep.
$20K in debt?
Yep, $20K in debt. First one was...
Are you willing to sell everything you own to get one more month of payroll for your team?
There you go. So what are you liquid for, debt for it, and then willing to give your social trust, your reputation, right? So it's your assets, it's your future, and then your reputation, all for this idea. That's powerful. It really
Absolutely.
is.
And I want to clarify for those who listen, what we're talking about and what they're talking about in Founders U is not starting a business. Now, starting a business is hard. Understandably, most people fail in starting a business, but there's different types of business. What we're talking about, angel investors, seed rounds, all this stuff, this is limitless potential, usually in a tech type sphere. He gave a great example, kind of a story of, you could set up a website where you collect people who do, this wasn't the story you told, but similar. You could make a website where you kind of facilitate all the painters in your city or town and help them find jobs, and you take a cut of that profit. That's wonderful. That's a job. You can make good profit. You can make a good living off that. But the income potential, the revenue potential is limited. That's a service you're providing. What we're referring to is a new product, a new idea that can be expanded upon it, grown, like a Facebook, like a Lyft. Like, this is typically technology geared, not necessarily product driven. Product and service industries are a bit more complicated and have a limit, a ceiling limit to their growth. What we're referring to are things that can grow exponentially and continue to be sold worldwide, potentially, globally. So I don't want to scare anyone who listens saying, if you want to start a business, you have to sell all your belongings and go $20K in debt to pay your employees. Maybe. But what we're talking about is a different type of product. It's not a service. It's a product that can be expanded and grown. So I don't want to scare anyone with this, because it scared me a little bit, admittedly. But I had to kind of center myself and think, slow down. You're not there yet. You got a wild idea and literally nothing else. I don't have to consider selling my house right now to pay employees. I don't have employees. You don't have employees. None of us have employees. But it served a good purpose, because I realized the side purpose he was doing of the story is to scare some people out of this. Some people just are not made for it, and he wanted to get that point across. And without being a jerk, and I don't think he was being realistic. Some people will not be cut out for this.
Yeah, and specifically, we talked about they only invest in certain types of business, and that is software as a service companies. Mm-hmm. So something like an Adobe Creative Suite, for example, is a great example of that. A marketplace. So again, think Facebook Marketplace, eBay, something where people can do business on, and you get a cut of that. Mm-hmm. Customer subscription, which is similar to SaaS, but so technically software as a service is traditionally more of a business to business, B2B model. Customer subscription is more business to consumer. So think Spotify, for example.
Right.
And then there's fintech, where something like Stripe or Square or Robinhood, you're doing something with money, financials, equities, things along those lines, and you take a cut for the transaction to allow that to happen. Yeah. And then the biggest thing all of those have advantages for is, like you touched on, it's scale and impact. If you're doing a product service, if you're doing just a regular service business, so like you were saying in your specific example, if you're a service, you're trading your time for money, or you're trading your employees' time for money, and that's doesn't scale as effectively because there's only so much output you can get from each person. And so compared to technology where it just scales more effectively because you can just buy more server time, more hardware, more units can be generated compared to the physical products or physical efforts of people. And so that's one of the reasons that a lot of these angel investors love technology companies, is just due to the amount of scale to money. And when I was in the Kansas City Developers Conference, they actually talked about new AI models and how they're measuring companies based off of how many customers they can serve per employee. And it talked about Wells Fargo I think it was around 300 customers they served per employee they had.
Yep.
But there was Ant Online, who before they got shut down by the Chinese government was this crazy technology financial firm. I think it was 30,000 customers per one employee. And that's just how much more effective they could be. And then they talked about Blockbuster versus Netflix and the same kind of metrics. And it's just astounding how much more efficient technology you can use technology in your business to be.
Absolutely. And that's why the successful great tech ideas out there become the beasts of our market. The Amazons, the Facebooks, the Twitters. They're beasts because it doesn't depend on one person's time. That's a great clarification. I totally forgot about that point. You and I, most people have jobs. We are salary or hourly. We trade our time for money. I don't know about you, but I only have 24 hours in a day, and I have to sleep sometime. I don't wish to work 24 hours a day, and you can't do that. You can't run at Redline. We're humans. But you know what isn't human? Technology. So it scales. Absolutely. Great point. Thanks for clarifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing, and this is where I'd kind of like us to touch on each of these points. He said the big three areas that he was going to talk about in the course was team, product, customers. And so I want to start with team. I was listening to a podcast on my drive back from Omaha last night. It was a Lex Friedman podcast, and he had Chamath Palihapitiya, who does the All In podcast with Jason Calacanis, as well as two others who they talked about. But Chamath was on Lex Friedman, and he talked about 3 mistakes you can do in business when you're building a team. And I wanted to get your read on this because I haven't told you about this before. I want your genuine take.
Love it.
So let me pull this up. So mistake number 1, say you'll hire somebody and they're really, really, really average, but they're a really great person.
Yeah. That's got to be tough when hiring. And Tanner, you this is part of what you do. You are very familiar with hiring and that process and ensuring the right fit for a role. But just because you like someone doesn't mean they're going to be beneficial and they're going to help you take that to the next level, especially in key positions, in leadership positions, founder positions. An average person that is just a really good dude might be fun and they might make it enjoyable. But when, the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and you need that extra bit out of them, you need that next level kind of participation and knowledge and intelligence, and you're not going to get it, all you're stuck with then is a cost, an employee cost. And this is rough to say, but once again, we're all employees of a company, most of us. We're a cost, and it's about value, right? Man, I know so many great people. Most of them I would not hire if I owned my own company, because average is great for steady state. But with these companies, especially when you get into investing, it's like a staircase. You have to keep going up. You have to keep making it better, iterating, taking that voice of the customer, putting that into your product and producing something even better than you had before. And it's the same with employees. They need to kind of move with it. And if they can't meet that goal, if they can't meet that expectation of keep going further, keep pushing it, it's just going to be dead weight. And that's so hard to say. And I'm not a great person at mincing my words, and I know this is a fault of mine. I get my hands slapped at work all the time. So it's just what it is, though. People will word it better than I do, but at the end of the day, that's it. There's a limit to some people, and that sucks.
Well, just think about what you were saying earlier. If you are investing everything you own, if you're willing to go into debt, if you're willing to ask everyone else to sacrifice for the team, that team can't be average. It has to have that spark. It has to have that potential. It has to be that excellent team that could win the quote-unquote championship, make the corner be the best. And unfortunately, even if you have great people, you're the sum of all your parts. And the great people just may not be able to produce at the level that you need at that moment. And not to say there's you don't respect them, there's not other opportunities, but that is one of the hardest things. You have somebody that you love, and you have to let them go if you need. Number two was you hire somebody, and they really weren't honest with who they are and their real personality, their real morality, and their ethics only expose themselves over a long period of time.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's a big mistake that happens all the time. You misjudge someone at the beginning.
I bet. Yeah.
And then they get entrenched in your business. And before you know it, it's not even that they're average, maybe that they're good, but they're just not the type of person that you want to be arm in arm with. You would want to risk your reputation on. You would trust with, again, if you ask everyone else to sacrifice, is that person going to have the best for you?
Absolutely. I always go back to a funny example. I've worked for lots of companies, whether directly or as a contracting consulting. And every company, if you walk into their headquarters, has their mission and vision on the wall somewhere, and they're very proud of it, and sometimes they put it in their email signatures. I don't think it's fair to say most. Lots of companies, it's just fluff. Someone in marketing went to the CEO and said, "Hey, what do you think of this mission statement?" They're like, "That sounds good. Let's put it on the website." But in reality, there are some companies who make that mission and vision statement and live by it. Live and breathe by it, make business decisions by it. And those companies that kind of lead and go with a guiding light and actually follow it, they can get really successful. So when you don't have employees or partners or anything who don't meet that vision in the end, they're not dead weight. They're even worse. They can absolutely bring down a culture. They can bring down other team members. They can become, once again, suck at mincing words, they can become a virus and they can spread. It creates negativity, and it also reflects on your judgment. If you have someone who the values and beliefs don't mesh with your company and they do something negative, that reflects on you. You hired them. So, gosh, that's a trap. Ooh.
Yeah, and well, especially because if it manifests slowly, they're part of the team. They're ingrained. They have responsibilities. They're bearing a lot of the weight, especially with a small team. And so that's even harder, again, to change and make that course correction. And then here's the final one. And this one sounds like it's easy, but when you're a business owner and money is on the line, it's really not. You hire somebody and they're not that good morally, but they're highly performative.
Yeah, it goes back to what I just said about the previous one. I think companies who create a mission and vision and live by it, create their business plan and how they move forward, how they treat their customers, by that moral kind of North Star, find great success. And customers realize that when they're treated that way. Gosh, that it's the same as the last one. Is, you're never gonna hire the right person every single time. In all categories, they have the skill set, they have the gumption, the drive. It's never going to happen. So you've got to find that solid balance. But I'm just going to keep going back to that mission and vision of companies, because so many, it's just fluff on a wall, something to add to their marketing portfolio. And some companies, their entire business is based off that. And that doesn't just mean how they do business. It means the people that they bring into their business.
Yeah, it's so hard to sacrifice the short-term gain for the potential long-term benefit.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with very performative people. You might have a salesperson that crushes it and brings you in more customers that you need, and you're looking great on paper, but they're slipping in some lies here and there. They're extending the truth of your capability. They're doing things that, maybe it's not atrocious, but it's still not quite honest or moral to do, and how that short-term benefit, you're hitting your sales. And again, this is what I was saying, as a business owner, it's so hard when you're finally getting what feels like traction, feels like momentum. You're getting reserves in the bank account, getting more customers onboarded. But if it wasn't done honestly and ethically, it's not sustainable, and it's just a house of cards, and it's that bubble in the foundation or crack in the foundation that eventually, once enough weight comes in, it's all going to come crashing down.
And that's exactly it. It's a slippery slope. It exposes your business to, it exposes you to the customers, bad publicity, all the way up to legal and compliance issues, depending on your product and your market that you're in. An unethical decision by an employee can tank an entire company, depending on what that employee is in charge of. And once again, that's on the person who hired them, unfortunately. You can't see the future, but an unethical person who does unethical things in your business could destroy your entire company.
Yeah. So the next one was product, which I feel like we've touched on in some of our previous episodes. So if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, you should, especially the one on Scrum, because it talked a lot about product and how to develop those. I also feel like the next few weeks, as we start going through the product area, we can really touch deeper on that. But I did want to touch on customers. We've talked about it a little bit lightly on some of the previous episodes, but what does it mean to, one, have a customer identified, how to have a big enough market to where it's worth going after, but also how to do right by them. So what's your thoughts, Wyatt?
Absolutely. This is something I live by in my job, in my field. Companies that truly live by the voice of the customer. VOC, voice of the customer. I preach it. I tell everyone. You don't have a business if you don't have customers. I don't care if you're B2B, B2C. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. If you don't have revenue coming in, you won't have a business very long. And the companies who figure that out too late, they sink. The customers the businesses who start early, identifying their customer, exactly what you said. Who is my customer? Who is my customer segment? Who is interested in my product or service that I have? Not only trying to imagine what that person is, but going out, talking to your potential customer base, interviewing them. Is this interesting to you? Do you care about this? What if you had this at your service? I see you're trying to get into XYZ. What if there was a product that would make your life easier? It would do XYZ for you. Would that be interesting to you? Interviewing customers and getting their feedback is probably one of the most influential things you can do, not only in starting a business, but in running, maintaining a business. Long-time businesses, 100-year-old businesses, they still have to listen to their customers, because if you don't appease your customers, if you do not gear your product or service towards your customers, you don't have a business soon.
Yeah. So did you have any other main points that you had written down that you wanted to hit on there?
Not on product. No. It's all about customer. I don't care what your product is.
Yeah. Perfect. So we're kind of getting towards the end spot here, so I want to kind of hit the final act of what we've been talking about ourselves quite a bit here and what we've been learning, but I want to ask you and start discussing what if someone's listening and they have, again, a problem for somebody that they'd like to solve, and perhaps there's a business or a service or something around it. What is from the nuggets from the last week that you would tell them that they could actually use to start making that a reality?
Love it. So there's some mindset techniques, and I'm not talking about do you want to go 20K in debt, but in regards to what we learned in Founders U and all this stuff, it kind of extends. Winning founders. Anyone can be a founder. Anyone can start a business. But to be a winning founder, you must be, and I have 6 bullet points, and I thought these are great. I have them written on my whiteboard next to me. Winning founders need an unrelenting desire to see their vision realized. That's tenacity. You have a vision, you think it's good, you prove it's good, and you go out and make it work. Or at least give it the best shot you have. Don't half-ass it. Winning founders have an unapologetic resiliency. Sometimes you're going to get haters. Sometimes you're going to get people who say, that's a stupid idea. You can never make it. You'll never, make anything out of this. You have to be unapologetic about your vision, about what you want. They have to have passion. But what does passion mean? They want to complete a mission. Founders want to complete a mission. Your mission isn't, I want to be a millionaire. Your mission has to be, once again, back to customers, customer focused. You've identified a problem. You've identified a solution. You build a solution because you want to fix a problem for others. Last 3 points. Winning founders can build or craft a product or service and understand its features completely. You can't just be a person who identified a problem and pass it off to other people to build and hope you collect money. If you want to start a business, if you want to start a service, if you have a wonderful idea, you need to be in the trenches at the beginning. Definitely at the beginning, you have to understand it completely. When he talked about, an investor asks you a question, you have to answer it directly. Don't beat around the bush. If they don't want to hear why you don't have enough customers lately, they want to hear how many customers you have. Winning founders have the ability to see something through to completion. That goes back to that tenacity. You have a mindset to complete something. What if it fails? Who cares? You might lose a little money. You might lose a little credibility, but you can rebuild because you are confident in yourself. You are confident in your solution. And then finally, winning founders recruit others to work on their project. We talked about that. Getting the right people in on your project. You can't do it alone. This is not a solo world, building a business. And don't get me wrong. Once again, there's some services out there. You want to start a lawn mowing service? Wonderful. We're talking about software, typically financial services, big scalable businesses. Mark Zuckerberg is the face of Facebook or Meta. He didn't build it himself. Steve Jobs did not build Apple by himself, right? We have Wozniak and all that. There were other people involved, and they were great people, great founders. You have to be willing to accept help and understand you don't know all the answers. You have to try and find the answers or find the people who already know. So what would I say to people is, if you are passionate, you really think you have something here, go out and test it. Talk to people. Don't invest all of your time and money and put your house in a second mortgage because you think you have a wonderful idea before you test it. But more importantly, stick to that passion. See it through. If it fails, it fails. But I guarantee you may not end up with a great successful business at the end, but you're going to end up with wonderful knowledge. And maybe you can carry that over into your next business or your next wonderful idea, whatever that may be.
Yeah. So just like you said, it's all about coming up with the idea and testing it. A real business, like a true business, is a money printing machine. It really is. And it's not a money eating machine. And I've been in the past where I formed something that could survive, but it just ate money. Mm-hmm. If you want to have a true business, a true idea that's going to, enable you to do things that you've always wanted to do and not have the issues and just constantly have forward momentum, it should be that money printing machine in a sense. And that's where customers want to use that. They want to spend money on it. We talked about that earlier. People want to join the company. Some would want to do it for free so they could be a part of it. Yeah. That's all those things. There should be a momentum around it because it makes sense, because it has a purpose for this world today. And if it doesn't, again, we talked about this in a previous episode where it just might not be the right time. And so just be vigilant, have it ready for when it is the right time, because technology changes all around. Before cloud computing, there are all these apps and stuff wouldn't have existed because you would have had to have your own data center to run it. But now you can spin up an Azure server or an AWS or Google Cloud server, and you can host your own application. And you can have it reach unlimited amounts of people. And if you have a money printing machine, as you get more customers, you just buy more resources, more scale. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing what technology can do. And I don't want to just limit us to technology to software. Everything is technology in a sense. So you can have an idea, whether it be in agriculture, it could be in energy, it could be in healthcare or medicines and all these different things. And those can scale too. But in our practical application, we're techie people. we're thinking in apps, and so that's what we're going to discuss for a while. But I am excited to interview other people who are thinking in other ways.
Coming soon. Absolutely. And that's it. You have to be smart. You have to be clever. You have to be lean when starting a business. But you also have to be humble. And I'm not talking humble and arrogance. You can be arrogant. I don't care. You have to be humble in understanding the fact that you don't know everything. And you have to have people on your side. And that's technology, that's service, that's any business whatsoever. You need help. And there's help out there. If you have a good idea, if you have a good product, people will come to you. That's not fair. That's not fair. I don't want to give people false hope. But spreading your message, you'll find the right people. They'll want to be a part of your vision because it's that good. And if you can't find anyone who wants to be part on your team, maybe you don't have a great idea, right? Go back to the drawing board. It's okay to fail. It's okay to have 100 failed businesses because you only have to be right once.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. I would just like to take a moment to thank everybody who's been listening to that. When we were starting up this episode before we hit record, Wyatt was sharing that he had so many people this week actually talk about the podcast and say that they listened to the last episode and got stuff from it. So if you've made it all the way to this far in the episode, do me a favor, do Wyatt a favor, and share it with one person. Just say, hey, you need to check these guys out, link it to them, guarantee it's worth your time. Or I don't guarantee it, but it might be worth your time. But we just...
Absolutely.
Our goal is to share what we're learning so other people can come on this journey with us. Our goal also is to learn from so many people from so many different areas. Like this next 12 weeks, we'll learn from a person who's a Silicon Valley superstar. But I also want to learn from the Silicon Prairie superstars or the agriculture superstars or
Silicon Prairie. I love that.
Yeah. There's so many different things, so many different people, so everywhere have such good knowledge. And that's really this quest that we're on and this journey that we're on. It's just learning and sharing those ideas and hopefully putting them into the world to be executed.
Absolutely. And if you do find value, if you do listen to this and you like it, feel free to reach out to us. Ask us questions. Heck, if you're interested in coming on this show and being interviewed, we would love to talk to you. We're not going to embarrass you. We want your knowledge. Tanner has his experiences. I have my experiences. And even that is just a tiny microcosm of what's out there. And anyone, whether you own your own business or not, maybe you just have a cool idea or you have some insight from a previous career, we would love to talk to you. We would love to hear from you. Reach out to us.
Sounds great. All right. Well, we'll see you all next week.
Thanks.